Welcome friends, families, and community members. Would everyone please stand and join the members of the Holliston High School Chorus as they lead us in a salute to our nation with their rendition of the Star-Spangled Banner.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Good afternoon and welcome to the graduation ceremony for Holliston High School's class of 2018. My name is Nicole Bottomley, and I have the distinct honor of being the principal of Holliston High School. Every year I look forward to this day because of the culmination of years of hard work and dedication that it represents. Parents, guardians, family and community members, and educators are here to see students walk across the stage and move through to the next phase of their lives. And students are here to walk across that stage, earn their diploma, and head off to start enjoying their post-secondary plans. Knowing the importance of this day, knowing the tremendous achievements of the graduates in front of you, I consider it a privilege to be a small part of this momentous occasion. One of my greatest pleasures this year was meeting with students each month for the focus groups, and many of the graduates in this room were part of those meetings. Students were not afraid to share their feedback, let me know what I was doing right and what I was doing wrong, and share their thoughts on how to make HHS the best it could be. I cannot express how much I enjoyed this, but also how important it is to find and use your voice. You all have a perspective that is unique to you and is incredibly valuable. Do everything you can to find your voice and speak up for the changes you want to see in all aspects of your lives. Think differently, value others' points of view, and continue to pursue the creative passions that make you who you are. When I think about the class of 2018, I think about resilience. There was an interesting article in Psychology Today discussing the importance of resilience, or the ability to recover from or adjust easily to misfortune or change. The article stated that the ability to bounce back or recover is important, but that's not the whole picture. A resilient child recovers from challenges, but they've learned to do more than that. They actually hold a different mindset. A mindset of resiliency that deeply believes I am not my mistakes, I can try again, things will get better, and I am not alone. This class has made mistakes along the way, has faced challenges, and experienced loss. But they have bounced back, succeeded in remarkable ways, and supported each other at every step. It is the support that I find so impressive. A colleague and mentor of mine will often remind me that asking for help is not a weakness, but rather a sign of strength, and I have seen these graduates show their strength each and every day. When I asked the class advisors to provide some thoughts about the class of 2018, Ms. Carrick O'Neill and Ms. Bowker commented on an observation that Ms. Bodmer made last week during the Senior Awards Night. All three were impressed by the sincere and supportive cheering for each member of the class as they were called up to receive an award. In fact, the observation was that the cheering and support far surpassed any of the previous classes at Holliston High School. Your class advisors also mentioned that the support goes so far as to include traveling in packs. When you want one, you always get at least 4. And they describe you as a family. My heartfelt hope for all of you is that after you leave HHS, you will continue to be a family, rely on your resilience, and maintain the strong relationships you have built over the years. Graduates, I am so excited to see your impact on this world, and I wish you the best of luck in the future. Congratulations. It gives me distinct pleasure to invite our Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Bradford Jackson, to address the class of 2018.
Thank you. Members of the school committee, distinguished faculty, honored guests, family, friends, and most of all, members of the class of 2018. Good afternoon and welcome. Many of you started your time in public education when you entered kindergarten, some of you at Placentino, and all in August of 2005. I was there at Placentino to greet you, having just started my second year as superintendent here in Holliston. I marvel at the changes I've seen in you. On your first day of school, you timidly stood in line, one behind the other, wearing backpacks that seemed bigger than your bodies as you cautiously walked through the doors of Placentino. Today, you sit before all of us, strong and confident young people, ready and eager to forge your own path. It has been the honor of a lifetime to be able to be your superintendent throughout your entire K-12 journey. Thank you for allowing me to be a small part of your life during this time. Each year at graduation, I take this opportunity to ask our graduates one final quiz question. You ready? Finish the following sentence. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, and they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I was taking names during that time, by the way. I've been thinking a lot about that phrase this year. Have you ever wondered why Jefferson and the other founders who wrote the Declaration of Independence chose the phrase life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness? How come they didn't declare that your rights included life, liberty, and happiness? How come you don't have the right to happiness, but only the right to pursue happiness? I think it's because our founders recognized that happiness is different for different people, and that's probably a good thing because I bet the definition of happiness has changed a lot since 1776. In fact, today our culture seems more interested in the pursuit of success than the pursuit of happiness. So let me illustrate. I'd like each of our distinguished graduates to stop for a moment, close your eyes, and envision your success. Picture yourself 20 years from now, a success in your eyes and in the eyes of your peers. What do you see? Many of you picture yourself making a boatload of money, living in a large home with a 2-car garage, a loving spouse, 2.2 children, a family pet that's purebred, of course, and a country club membership. Others of you are picturing an opulent office on Wall Street or overlooking Hong Kong Harbor with assistants at your beck and call. I have a second vision of your success in 20 years. It's a little bit different. I see you toiling away in the dark recesses of a medical research center, uncovering the final mystery of the human genome that will make cancer, AIDS, or ALS an unpleasant memory. Or you'll be employed by a nonprofit working to bring fresh water to impoverished areas on the African continent. Or you'll be part of the design team at NASA that will put the first permanent human outpost on the moon or send the first manned spacecraft to Mars. Or you'll be teaching the next generation of Americans. Or you'll be coaching your daughter's softball team, or you will serve as a member of the board of directors of your house of worship, or maybe even you'll be a member of your local school committee. The first vision focuses more on the conventions and trappings of success, while the second, in my view, offers a more uplifting view with an emphasis of serving others as the gateway to success. While the second vision is closer to my dream for you, our Declaration of Independence affords you the right to pursue whatever makes you happy. And in the end, that is just my wish for you as well. I just want you to be happy. Because however you define success, without happiness, an empty life, it's an empty life with little hope of true fulfillment. You see, the older I get and the farther I get away from my own high school graduation and the closer I get to my 40th or 50th high school reunion, the more I realize that the moments I've cherished most in life were the moments where I was the happiest. What's more, I've learned that happiness isn't something that just falls out of the sky while you're busy doing something else. Happiness happens when you work at it and when you look for it. Each and every member of the class of 2018 deserves to be happy, and I challenge you to find that happiness, not in the size of your bank account or in the impressiveness of your resume, but by the quality of the human relations that you've forged. If you're in an unhappy relationship, end it. If you're in a job you find unfulfilling and unsatisfying, find another one. So my message to you, class of 2018, is not be happy, it's find happiness. Be happy is passive advice, suggesting you just need to sit around and wait for happiness to find you. My advice is much more active. Seek out happiness. Demand happiness. Fight for your happiness. Make an effort. Think about the people and the things that make you happy and then purposely fill your life with them. Life is not something that just happens to you. Life is something you control and something you can change. Now go out there, take charge of your life, cherish, defend, and exercise your liberty, and most of all, pursue your happiness. Good luck and Godspeed, class of 2018.
We've included 4 musical performances in our program this afternoon, highlighting some of the musical talent in this year's graduating class. The first performance features Elizabeth Valentini performing A Million Dreams by Hugh Jackman, Ziv Zafman, and Michelle Williams.
This song is dedicated to Miss Flatley by her loving students. Thank you for getting us here today. We miss you, and we know that no matter where you are, you're still looking out for us. I close my eyes and I can see the world that's waiting up for me, that I call my own. Through the dark, through the door, through where no one's been before, but it feels like home. They can say it all sounds crazy. They can say we've lost our minds. I don't care, is filled with things from far away. Special things I've compiled, each one there to make you smile on a rainy day. They can say it all sounds crazy. They can say we've lost our minds. I don't care if they call us crazy. We can live in a world that we design. 'Cause every night I lie in bed, the brightest colors fill my head. A million dreams are keeping me awake. I think of what the world could be, a vision of the one I see. A million dreams is all it's gonna take. A million dreams for the world we're gonna make. However big, however small, let me be part of it all. Share your dreams with me. You may be right, you may be wrong, but say that you'll bring me along to the world you see, to the world I close my eyes to see. I close my eyes to see. 'Cause every night I lie in bed, the brightest colors fill my head. A million dreams is all it's gonna take. I think of what the world could be, a vision of the one I see. A million dreams is all it's gonna take. A million dreams for the world we're gonna make. For the world we're gonna make. For the world we're gonna make.
Our next speaker is our salutatorian, Melissa Fornagel. Unparalleled, innate, academically curious, and intensely driven are all words that can describe Melissa. Melissa displays incredible heart and passion to her school and community. She loves to be challenged and has a laser focus to push the boundaries of learning. Melissa is polished, kind, and a difference maker in our community. A friend to all, Melissa is a team player who is consistently helping others and making positive experiences for the good of the group. She is well respected by students and faculty, and her calming spirit and passion will serve her well in college and beyond. It is my honor to present Melissa Fornagel.
Hey guys. I'm going to be perfectly honest here. When Miss Bottomley and Miss Canoni told me I was going to have to read a speech today, I did what any rational 18-year-old would do. I took to Google. As I probably should have expected, Nikki Howe's How to Write a High School Farewell Speech with pictures and similar websites were less than helpful. I read page after page about how I should find a nugget of lofty advice to share with you all, or how I should tell a poignant personal story about all the epic battles I've faced in the last 18 years. I could tell you that failure is okay, or that you should believe in yourself, or any other platitude you've heard about 900 times before, but I don't think it would change how you think. For this reason, this speech will be inundated not with lecturing, but with a simple message: gratitude. Throughout my 4 years at Holliston, it has become evident that our community, both the HHS community and the Holliston community as a whole, shape us. At the end of the day, the graduates in this building met by pure chance. We happen to be born in the same year. We happen to attend Holliston High School, a choice likely not made by us students, but our parents. The only place most of us know is Holliston. Initially, this fact may make Holliston seem simplistic, ordinary, or dull. However, I find that the opposite is true. Random circumstance does not detract from the relationships we have formed with one another. It does not discredit any experience that we've shared. In fact, it has allowed me to become close with so many incredible personalities I never would have met on my own if I had been allowed to choose. If we had been allowed to choose who we spent these last 4 years with, we probably would have chosen people who are just like us. Instead, we've surrounded ourselves with intellectually diverse people, people who provide viewpoints that differ from our own, people who open our blind eyes, and people whose stories need to be told. Although we have been thrust together by our parents' wills and accidents of fate, we are all the better for it, and we have accomplished some truly remarkable feats. From coordinating Art Saves Lives this year, to organizing the construction of a tiny house, to senior takeover, the class of 2018 has without a doubt made its mark on Holliston High School. It's true. The diverse people and experiences that surround us throughout our lives push us to be mature, well-rounded, and compassionate individuals. For this reason, I am grateful to be part of the warm, stimulating, intellectually diverse, and occasionally troublesome community that is my class. Sometimes it is the arbitrary accidents of life that serve to be the most purposeful. Today, however, is not simply a day to reminisce, but rather a day to speculate on our future and our purposes, particularly how people that surround us give us purpose. A peculiar contradiction is often perpetuated on young minds, that we must ourselves be happy and follow the traditional path that is a 4-year university, an arduous 9-to-5 job, wealth, hard work, the American dream. But purpose doesn't stem from materialism. It does not eventuate from a 6-figure salary or from a perfect GPA. Perhaps this seems a bit backwards to hear from someone who is currently pursuing said traditional path, but my point is that there is no one-size-fits-all approach to happiness. Purpose is human. More often than not, purpose comes from our identities and our relationships. It comes from people. Much of the speech has been based on observations from the last 4 years. One concept, however, remains consistent: the profound impact that others should have on us. I think I speak for the majority of students when I say that not a single one of us would be here without at least one person helping us. So I'd like to thank the mothers and fathers here today who had to deal with the tumultuous lows and exhilarating highs of adolescence. I'd like to thank the grandmothers, grandfathers, aunts, uncles, and other relatives who gave us everything we needed, and then some, and then even more. I'd like to thank the teachers we've had, who spent days upon days with our dorky and obnoxious selves and shaped us into sensitive and knowledgeable young adults. I'd like to thank my fellow peers because even though it hasn't been easy and we've all done our fair share of stupid things, we've all been there for each other through adversity and heartbreak. To my classmates, after today, we will be thrust into an uncertain time filled with both chaotic change and unsurmountable possibility. As we continue on, the contributions and selfless support of those around us will guide us. This is the only time in your life you will have such endless possibility and such potential to find the right way to live purposely. Embrace that chaos. Thank you.
Our next musical performance is by Sarah Kennedy and Michaela Michieli, performing Home by Edward Sharpe and Magnetic Zeros.
Let
I'll follow you into the park, through the jungle, through the dark. Girl, I never loved one like you.
Moats and boats and waterfalls, alleyways and payphone calls. I've been everywhere with you.
We'll laugh until we think we'll die, barefoot on a summer night. Never could be sweeter than with you.
And in the streets you run a free, like it's only you and me. Geez, you're really something to see.
Home, let me come home. Home is wherever I'm with you. Home, let me come home. Home is wherever I'm with you. Home, let me come home. Home is wherever I'm with you. Home, let me come home. Home is wherever I'm with you. Home, let me come home. Home is wherever I'm with you. Our home, yes, I am home. Home is wherever I'm with you.
That's in keeping with the class of 2018. All right, so Kelly Irons, inquisitive, poised, motivator, leader, curious. Kelly is the Energizer Bunny, literally and figuratively, in our school and community. Her passion and commitment are endless, and her learning is boundless. Kelly has a passion for learning and is inquisitive about the world around us. She is always inquiring about how to make the world better for future generations. Her mind is always thinking about how to improve life through science and exploration. She has dedicated countless hours to her school and community, and she has been a role model and cheerleader to her peers, teammates, and teachers. Always ready to lend a helping hand and a kind word, Kelly's huge heart and limitless potential will make our world a better place. It is now my honor to present Kelly Irons.
Thank you, Ms. Bottomley. Good afternoon. While I really appreciate the opportunity to speak today, I've been pretty nervous about it, so I brought a friend to make me feel a little more at ease. In all seriousness, though, I was asked to speak today because of my good grades. While I consider myself pretty good at derivatives and writing essays, I do not have much real-life experience. So, I have decided to talk to you today about two things I do know pretty well: plants and running. This plant is a type of succulent. It is designed to survive hot, dry, and overall stressful environments. I bought this specific plant a few months ago because once a year its perseverance is displayed by little white flowers, a white not of surrender, but of triumph. We, too, are at a point of joyful triumph today. High school has often felt like a struggle for many of us. Between the heat of expectations and pressures and feeling parched for sleep or free time, it sometimes felt like we were barely moving forward, barely growing. Yet, as is evident by the flowers on a plant or our caps and gowns today, consistent hard work and effort are rewarded, and that is something of which to be proud. I encourage each of you to consider the obstacles you have overcome during your time here at HHS and how they have shaped the person you are today. I think we can all agree that we get some criticism as a class, but I believe that we have made it through a lot together. We've gotten through bops, many false alarms, false alarms, a chemical spill, and on a more serious note, the difficult losses of important members of our school. Members of our class have worked together to impact our community, from the walkout focusing on national issues to putting on a great show for Senior Showcase. Every time California Girls comes on, I still want to do a little dance. California Girls. Today is the day to celebrate these accomplishments, but also remember that this is not the end. Though next year we may encounter new hardships and stresses, I am confident that each of us, slowly but surely, will keep growing. In terms of advice for these future endeavors, I'd like to share the words of a very talented runner that I had as a camp counselor. I have been running competitively since 7th grade, and while I love the sport, I get very anxious before races. I wanted my last year of competitive running to be different, and something I heard at the running camp I attended over the summer helped a lot with making my running experience more positive. When asked how to better deal with the pressures of racing, a counselor replied that before each meet, he would promise himself that he would be proud at the end of the race, no matter what happened. I share this with you today because I believe that it applies not just to running, but to many of the challenges we will soon face. The key to this advice is that you must also promise yourself that you will do your very best to succeed. It is no secret that our future pursuits will likely be difficult, and there will be failures. This plant just needs water and plenty of sun to flourish, but I believe that we need something a little different: trust in ourselves. Many of us have had lots of help and input from our teachers, family, and friends regarding the process of planning the next few years of our lives, but soon we will be on our own. If we trust in our ability to make the best decisions for ourselves and act on them accordingly, given our capacity at the time, we will succeed in our new surroundings. At the same time, many of us are not as self-sufficient as we need to be. There will be times when we need a hand from someone else, for a bit of water like my plant, or for some help getting out of a rough time, and that is okay. While we are going to try our best to be adults next year, we will still have our family and friends at home, and hopefully we will find new support networks in our future pursuits. I encourage each of you to ask for help when you are in need, whether you are really struggling or are just stuck on a piece of homework. On that note, I urge you, if you have not already done so, to thank the people who have helped you get where you are today and where you will be in a few months. I would like to personally thank all of my teachers. Choosing just one person to hand me my diploma was extremely difficult. Thank you to Mrs. Mott, the rest of the guidance department, and administration for your assistance throughout this journey. I'd also like to acknowledge my fellow NHS officers, Michaela and Eamon. They were not allowed to sit on stage with Morgan and me today, but they were absolutely essential to the club's functioning, and I am so thankful to have been able to work with them these past 2 years. I'd also like to thank all of you. It's been a pleasure growing up together. Lastly, I'd like to thank my parents for making me the person I am today, Maria for all of the great times, and Jacob for always believing in me. Congratulations again to our class. Remember to celebrate your triumphs today, especially in the context of the hard work that got you here, and promise yourself that you will be proud of the way you handle what is to come going forward. Oh, and stay classy, Holliston. Thank you.
As we planned, next to address our class will be our class president, Jeffrey Myers. Jeff is a round of applause, definitely. Jeff is a young man of wonderful character who has the potential to influence the world in a positive manner. In and out of the classroom, Jeff is a leader and is admired by his peers for his thoughtfulness and respected by faculty and staff for his willingness to help. He is excited about his future and is looking forward to the challenges that await him. Jeff's maturity and positive outlook will serve him well. I have no doubt he will be successful in all of his future endeavors. It is my pleasure to introduce Jeffrey Myers.
Good afternoon. On behalf of the Holliston High School class of 2018, I would like to welcome Dr. Jackson, Mrs. Bottomley, faculty, family, friends, and distinguished guests. Thank you all for gathering here today to celebrate the next chapter in the lives of the remarkable, proud, and irreplaceable class of 2018. I've had the past year to think about what I would say to all of you here today, so naturally I began writing this week. I'd first like to acknowledge the true heroes of the past 4 years, without whom not a single one of us would be able to walk today. This list includes, but is not limited to, Dunkin' Donuts, Google, Wikipedia, SparkNotes, and First Lunches on Friday. Thank you. I believe the class of 2018 is the luckiest class to ever walk through the halls of Holliston High. I mean it. We survived the great paper shortage of 2015 and a gang whose front was a book club. I count ourselves very lucky to have made it 4 years without the building crumbling down on top of us. This building is so old that one of our chemistry teachers tried to burn it down. 4 years ago, the class of 2018 entered high school with very little knowledge of what was to come. Personally, I was excited, yet afraid. Turns out, the scariest part of freshman year were the dance moves at homecoming. Entering sophomore year, our class felt a little more comfortable. Academics became more serious. Many of us finished our first AP classes, and Alex Kelly began lifting a couple heavy weights. Junior year was memorable, as we began taking leadership roles throughout the school while preparing for our futures. Clubs such as SAD, Leos, and NHS thrived. We began taking SATs and spending long nights applying to colleges. Matt O'Connell got his last haircut ever. Senior year had an interesting start. Senior auction, while extremely stressful, was equally as successful. Our class raised over $18,000 in just one day. How amazing is that? Seniors, take a moment and think about how far we've come in such little time. Freshman year was only 4 years ago, yet look at how much we've grown. Well, everyone except maybe Evan Resendiz. I love you, Evan. The only things that have stayed the same are the luscious locks on Eamon Powers' head and this haircut, circa 2012. Now, take a moment and think about all the people that have helped you to get to where you are today. I believe the class of 2018 was blessed to have some of the most amazing teachers for the past 13 years. As the song Big Brother, an ode to poet and prophet Jay-Z put it, if you admire someone, you should go ahead and tell them. People never get the flowers while they can still smell them. Full disclosure, being the son of 2 teachers, I may be a little biased on the issue, but I believe it is important to thank the teachers in our lives. As you walk across the stage today, be sure to say thank you to the teachers present. Thank them for passing you when we all know you shouldn't have. Thank them for putting up with our shenanigans. And thank them for inspiring us all to become better human beings. I would be remiss not to acknowledge the amazing careers and lives of 2 educators that are no longer with us. To Ms. Flatley and Madame Kakavali, thank you and merci. You touched the lives of so many students and meant a great deal to this class. But I do believe that they are with us today, as seen in the success of all of our students. I would also like to thank our class advisors, Ms. Seo and Ms. Bowker. 2 years ago, I came to you two on my knees begging for someone to take up the vacant position of class advisor. Yes, I'm afraid it's a little too late to back out now. While we definitely drove you two crazy, I'd like to thank you both on behalf of everyone here for guiding us through the past 2 years. We truly couldn't have done it without you. Finally, I'd like to end with a quote from John F. Kennedy, who famously said that as we express our gratitude, we must never forget that the highest appreciation is not to utter words, but to live by them. Strive for your best. Always appreciate the things that you have in your life, and be sure to thank those that helped you along the way. Thank you.
Our next musical performance is by Megan Kennedy. She will be performing I Will Always Love You by Whitney Houston.
If I should stay, I would only be in your way. So I go, but I know I'll think of you every step of the way. And I will always love you. Will always love you. Oh my darling, you. Memory. That is all I'm taking with me. So goodbye. I went to lose, don't cry. We both know I'm not what you need. And I will always love you. Will always love you. I hope life treats you kind, and I hope you have all you dreamed of, and I wish you joy and happiness. But above all this, I wish you love. And I will always love you. Will always love you.
Madam School Committee Chairperson, in a moment I will be presenting to you the Holliston class of 2018 for the presentation of their diplomas. Each member of this class has fulfilled all obligations and earned all credits under the regulations of the state of Massachusetts and has fulfilled all requirements as set forth by the Holliston School Committee and Holliston High School. I know you can't wait to get those diplomas. We will now hear our final musical performance of the afternoon. Amanda Willis and Jackson Clyde will perform Time of Our Lives by Tyrone Wells.
Where the water meets the land, there is shifting in the sand, like the tide that ebbs and flows. Memories will come and go. All of these years when we were here are ending, but I'll always remember we have had the time of our lives, and now the page is turned, the stories we will write. We have had the time of our lives, and I will not forget the faces left behind. It's hard to walk away from the best of days, but if it has to end, I'm glad you have been my friend in the time of our lives. We say goodbye, we hold on tight to these memories that never die. We say goodbye, we hold on tight to these memories that never die. We have had the time of our lives, and now the page is turned, stories we will write. We have had the time of our lives, and I will not forget to walk away from the best of days. But if it has to end, I'm glad you have been my friend in the time of our lives.
I'm glad you have been my friend in the time of our lives.
And now the moment you have all been waiting for, the presentation of diplomas. I will ask Jeffrey Myers to come to the podium and the graduation marshals to address the first row of graduates.
Isabel Leslie Abdallah, presented by Mr. Chris Murphy. Michelle Gail Aronian, presented by Ms. Finch Bowen. Ashley Marie Alexander, presented by Mr. Paul Hickey. Taylor Ann Alexander, presented by Mr. Donald Quinley. Sarah Anwar, presented by Ms. Enos Dawood. Jake William Armstrong, presented by Mr. Brian Healy. Seth Andrew Asher, presented by Mr. Chris Murphy. Andrew Michael Ballestieri, presented by Mr. Timothy Bailey. Kristen Jane Ballowitz, presented by Mr. Gregory Ballowitz. Heather Paige Bannock, presented by Mr. Douglas Calais. Teresa Marie Bazonsky, presented by Mr. Douglas Calais. Kevin Jerry Bellier, presented by Mr. Thomas Levesque. Ryan Thomas Banco, presented by Mr. Thomas Levesque. Larson William Berg, presented by Ms. Courtney Bowker. Eben Paul Berry, presented by Mr. Sean Bilodeau. Clayton McLean Boyce, presented by Ms. Jenna Galster. Sarah Isabel Brightboard, presented by Ms. Courtney Bowker. Chris Krishna Brown, presented by Ms. Heidi Finnegan. Noah Jerome Brown, presented by Mr. Patrick Kelly. Liam Francis Buttonbaugh, presented by Mr. Sean Rooney. Sam Daly Burchard, presented by Mr. Thomas Levesque. Joshua Edward Kagan, presented by Mr. Murray Galster. Michaela Claire Campbell, presented by Ms. Elizabeth Moreno. William Faulkner Campbell, presented by Mr. Chris Murphy. John Christopher Canal, presented by Ms. Linda Canal. William Joseph Saloyer, presented by Mr. Patrick Kelly. Adrian Chang, presented by Ms. Alicia Moulter. Caitlin Chang, presented by Ms. Sean Bilodeau. Lydia Jane Cheever, presented by Ms. Paula O'Brien. William James Kamini, presented by Mr. Joel Bernstein. Jackson George Clyde, presented by Mr. Stuart Britton. Julia Marie Coolidge, presented by Ms. Jamie Murphy. Brian Michael Coughlin, presented by Ms. Jamie Murphy. Cassandra Loren Coussaillon, presented by Ms. Susan Stone. Gabriella Rachel Cummins, presented by Ms. Ann Brady. Laura Olivia Cunningham, presented by Ms. Shauna Frost. Devin Bryn Curry, presented by Mr. Gregory White. Jacob Daniel Curto, presented by Ms. Paula O'Brien. Daniel Dagnachu, presented by Mr. Patrick Kelly. Hannah Isabel Damagella, presented by Mr. Donald Quinley. Cameron Michael DeCristofaro, presented by Mr. Thomas Levesque. Anne Elizabeth Denman, presented by Ms. Kristen O'Neill. Morgan Cade DePrill, presented by Ms. Courtney Bowker. Sarah Margaret DeVoe, presented by Ms. Martha DeVoe. Matthew Russell Dewar, presented by Mr. Thomas Levesque. Patrick Charles Dillon, presented by Mr. Patrick Kelly. Taylor Lee Doherty, presented by Ms. Shauna Frost. Devin Pearl Dunn, presented by Mr. Paul Hickey.
Tyler James Dunn, presented by Mr. Douglas Lack. Grace Judith DeZindelet, presented by Ms. Courtney Bowker. Emil Marvin Exelholm, presented by Ms. Jenna Galster. William Thomas Fitzgerald, presented by Mr. Brian Healy. Teresa Lynn Flanagan, presented by Ms. Erica Calais. Savannah Ray Foley, presented by Ms. Stephanie Foley. John Dylan Fernagle, presented by Ms. Amanda Rivera. James Joseph Franco, presented by Mr. Brian Healy. Ryan Carter Freely, presented by Mr. Brian Healy. Melanie Ann Gallias, presented by Miss Lisa Gallias Weber. Natalie Ann Garnham, presented by Miss Kelly Garnham. Maria Lynn Gentile, presented by Miss Elizabeth Moreno. Samantha Joanne Gelly, presented by Mr. William Wexler. Adam Christopher Gilbert, presented by Mr. Brian Healy. Adela Denise Gilchrist, presented by Miss Paula O'Brien. Joseph John Joffrey, presented by Mr. William Wexler. Annalisa Giulianini, presented by Miss Edith Nelson. Peter Andrew Gow, presented by Miss Christine Chesna. Jared Avery Grant, presented by Miss Sylvia Bodmer. Sage Jordan Grant, presented by Mr. Chris Murphy. James Andrew Grostein, presented by Ms. Heidi Finnegan. Megan Elizabeth Halpern, presented by Miss Edith Nelson. William Henry Hine, presented by Mr. John Powers. Connor James Hennessy, presented by Mr. Brian Healy. Andrew Daniel Higgins, presented by Mr. Christian Rankowitz. Riley Kendall Hinchy, presented by Miss Sarah Kuhn. Jillian Ellen Hobson, presented by Mr. Joseph Antonellis. Emily Bess Holman, presented by Mr. Douglas Calais. Hannah Jean Jacobson, presented by Miss Shauna Frost. Patrick Daniel Jewett, presented by Mr. Brian Healy. Ethan Michael Cagno, presented by Mr. Brian Healy. Sarah Catherine Kalani, presented by Mr. Sean Rooney. Dylan Jude Kasarjian, presented by Mr. Thomas Levesque. Brendan Michael Keeney, presented by Miss Paula O'Brien. Heather Anya Keith, presented by Mr. Stuart Britton. Alexander Benjamin Kelly, presented by Mr. Thomas Levesque. Megan Elizabeth Kennedy, presented by Miss Elizabeth Moreno. Sarah Elizabeth Kennedy, presented by Mr. Stuart Britton. Aaron Erin Catherine Kerr, presented by Mr. Chris Murphy. Georgia Lauren King, presented by Miss Paula O'Brien. Brian James Knowles, presented by Mr. Douglas Calais. Jake Ryan Kober, presented by Mr. Brian Healy. Cameron Casey Kazubal, presented by Mr. Daniel Marsh. Cameron Scott Lamont, presented by Mr. Scott O'Connor. Alyssa Jamie Langmeyer, presented by Mr. Sean Bilodeau. Flannery Rose Apuzzo Langton, presented by Mr. Chris Murphy. Jack Jarris Larsh, presented by Mr. Thomas Levesque. Zachariah Nua Latifi, presented by Mr. Aziz Latifi.
Nicholas Thomas LeBlanc, presented by Mr. Christian Rankowitz. Macy Christina Lee, presented by Mr. Brian Healy. Bridget Mary Lombardi, presented by Mr. Paul Hickey. Megan Elizabeth Lottie, presented by Ms. Courtney Bowker. Grace Elizabeth Lucy, presented by Mr. Chris Murphy. Grace Yvonne Lusko, presented by Miss Edith Nelson. Andrew Thomas Lynch, presented by Mr. Paul Hickey. Amanda Ashley Lyons, presented by Miss Edith Nelson. Liam Jack Malloy, presented by Miss Mary Gowan. Zichen Mao, presented by Mr. Douglas Lack. Brendan Thomas Martin, presented by Miss Amanda Rivera. Olivia Marie Mazio, presented by Miss Amanda Rivera. Abigail Anderson McAuliffe, presented by Mr. William Wexler. Heather Nicole McGee, presented by Miss Erica Calais. Murphy, presented by Mr. Douglas Calais. Riley Francis McGettigan, presented by Ms. Finch Bone. Justin Snow McManus, presented by Mr. Donald Quinley. Michaela Rose Michelli, presented by Ms. Claire Picard. Allison Mary Miller, presented by Ms. Edith Nelson. Max Ulau Minervino, presented by Mr. Zachary Schiff. Christopher Elaine Morales, presented by Ms. Jennifer Bethany. Caitlin Grace Murphy, presented by Ms. Courtney Bowker. Thomas Charles Murphy, presented by Ms. Courtney Bowker. Jillian Catherine Nall, presented by Ms. Manuela Harwich. Michael James Nash, presented by Ms. Courtney Bowker. Olivia Ty Wynn, presented by Ms. Edith Nelson. Matthew Joseph O'Connell, presented by Ms. Paula O'Brien. Catherine Ann Olson, presented by Ms. Sarah Kuhn. Olivia Erin Palmer, presented by Ms. Elizabeth Moreno. Zachary Hunter Pessin, presented by Mr. Thomas Levesque. Hazel Jane Peters, presented by Mr. Sean Bilodeau. Juliet Plan, presented by Mr. Chris Murphy. Tyler Joseph Pomfred, presented by Ms. Christina Kern. Henry Lawrence Powell, presented by Ms. Jenna Galster. Eamon John Hazen Powers, presented by Mr. Douglas Calais. Kaylee McKeever Powers, presented by Miss Elizabeth Moreno. Tess Elizabeth Powers, presented by Miss Elizabeth Moreno. Kevin Joseph Quinn, presented by Mr. Donald Quinley. Adele Joy Raymer, presented by Miss Kate Hickey. attendees, presented by Mr. Thomas Levesque. Jack Todd Ryder, presented by Ms. Karen Carrig O'Neill. Timothy Michael Ringy, presented by Ms. Sarah Kuhn. Cameron Gerard Rocket, presented by Mr. Donald Quinley. Louis Gorelick Rossi, presented by Mr. Sean Rooney. Emily Marie Rudowitz, presented by Ms. Jessica Hewitt. Nico Sebastian Ribzik Peroni, presented by Ms. Ann Canoni. Sydney Glenn Sack, presented by Ms. Courtney Bowker.
Madeline Ann Sahajian, presented by Ms. Erica Calais. George Robert Savino, presented by Mr. Chris Murphy. Emma Catherine Sayers, presented by Miss Elizabeth Moreno. Sanjay Abhimanyu Shaker, presented by Miss Amanda Rivera. Jaden Mitchell Cito, presented by Miss Finch Bowen. Bradford Kapler Seymour, presented by Mr. Sean Rooney. Faraj Vijay Sriwardankar, presented by Mr. Stuart Britton. Nicole Elizabeth Slade, presented by Miss Amanda Rivera. Harrison Caspern Smith, presented by Miss Courtney Bowker. Satchel Joseph Snow, presented by Mr. Joel Bernstein. Ryan Scott Sofel, presented by Mr. Brian Healy. Taylor Rose St. George, presented by Miss Courtney Bowker. Devin Sullivan Staub, presented by Miss Ann Canoni. Timothy David Strang, presented by Miss Sylvia Bodmer. Joshua Seth Taylor, presented by Mr. Chris Murphy. Benjamin Michael Thomas, presented by Mr. Thomas Levesque. Elizabeth Ann Valentini, presented by Mr. Stuart Britton. Kira Marie Walsh, presented by Mr. Donald Quinley. Alexander Edward Walters, presented by Mr. Joel Bernstein.
Caroline Barbara Ward, presented by Mr. Mark Rayblatt. Abby Ray Francis Wells, presented by Miss Erica Calais. Molly Jane Wilcox, presented by Miss Kristen O'Neill. Jack Kevin Wilkie, presented by Mr. Thomas Levesque. Amanda Kirsten Willis, presented by Mr. Stuart Britton. Benjamin Patrick Wolf, presented by Mr. Brian Healy. Ellis Nemo Wright, presented by Miss Amanda Rivera. Benjamin Jeremiah Zemer, presented by Mr. Thomas Reed. Emily Ann Zaraski, presented by Miss Shauna Frost.
Jeffrey Robert Myers, presented by Miss Paula O'Brien. Chloe Simone Londono Air, presented by Mr. Patrick Kelly. Emily Rose McConnell, presented by Miss Elizabeth Moreno. James Edward Cruz, presented by Mr. Sean Bilodeau. Kelly Erin Irons, presented by Miss Jenna Gulster. Melissa Nicole Cornagel, presented by Miss Jenna Gulster. Morgan Elizabeth Perry, presented by Mr. Daniel Marsh. Graduation marshals, please address the class. Okay. Graduates, are you ready? Are you sure? Okay. Graduates, at this time, please move your tassels to the left side of your caps to signify that you are now graduated.